When you reach your 80s, you think you've seen enough of life to make the right choices. But there's one decision I carry heavy in my heart the day I agreed to move into a senior care facility. At first, it sounded like the responsible thing to do. My children said I'd be more comfortable, more secure. They meant well. I trusted that. But what I imagined and what I experienced were two entirely different things. If you're thinking about this option, whether for yourself, a parent, or someone close, I want to ask you to pause. I'm not here to scare you. I'm here to share 6 difficult truths I wish someone had told me before I signed those papers. Because entering a nursing home doesn't just change your address, it can change your rhythm, your dignity, even your sense of who you are. And once you step inside, walking back out isn't always easy physically, emotionally, or financially. Please stay with me until the end. Some of what I'm going to tell you may be hard to hear, but it could spare you or someone you love from making a choice that's harder to reverse than it seems. Let's begin with the first truth that no one talks about but everyone feels. Regret 1. Losing my independence. I didn't realize how much freedom I had until I no longer had it. Before I moved into the care facility, my days were mine. I woke up when I felt ready. Sometimes I made tea and watched the sun come through the window. Other mornings, I would take a slow walk around the block just to hear the birds. My time was flexible. My choices felt natural, and everything I did carried a quiet sense of control. But the moment I stepped into that new environment, something began to shift. It wasn't just the smaller room or the routines posted on the wall. It was the fact that nearly every part of my life now ran on someone else's clock. Breakfast was served whether I was hungry or not. The lights were turned off at a set hour, regardless of how I felt. Wanting to step outside for some fresh air often meant waiting for permission, waiting for assistance, waiting for time that no longer felt like mine. Even the smallest things started to feel like they came with conditions. Picking out clothes, deciding what to eat, finding a quiet moment to read. These used to be simple parts of my day. Now, they required asking, explaining, or adjusting to someone else's schedule. I remember standing by the window one afternoon, looking out but not seeing much. It hit me then I wasn't living on my terms anymore. I was participating in a system, one that didn't ask much from me except that I follow along. And the strange part is, you do follow along, not because you want to, but because resisting feels exhausting. You stop making requests. You stop asking questions. Eventually, you start convincing yourself that this is just how things are now. But in doing so, you begin to fade a little. The hardest part isn't the structure or the rules. It's the slow erosion of who you were when you had choices. When you could say no, when you had the quiet power to decide what your day would look like. If you're thinking about making this kind of transition, whether for yourself or someone you love, ask this one question. Are you truly ready to hand over the small freedoms that make life feel like yours? Because once those freedoms are gone, it's not easy to get them back, and their absence will echo louder than you expect. Regret 2. Feeling forgotten. One of the most painful realizations about moving into long-term care isn't the food or the routine or the unfamiliar surroundings. It's the slow, quiet feeling that you've been left behind. When I first arrived, my heart was full of hope. My family had promised they would stay connected. My youngest son said he'd come by every weekend. My sister said we'd talk on the phone every few days. And at first, they did. The visits felt warm and familiar. It was like a piece of the outside world still lived inside these walls. But as time went on, life outside continued at its own pace, and mine seemed to slow down. The calls grew shorter. The visits came further apart. Next week, they'd say, "We'll come soon." And sometimes they did. But more often, something came up. Birthdays were forgotten. Holidays were delayed. The small things started to slip away. I began noticing how many of us would wait by the hallway windows or sit near the lobby, pretending not to wait for someone we hoped might show up. Most days, the seats stayed empty. And in those moments, even though you're surrounded by people, you feel deeply, deeply alone. It's not that they don't love you. It's that they're busy, distracted, swept up in responsibilities. And because you're not there every day, because you're no longer visible, it's easier for them to assume you're doing fine. But here's the truth most people don't talk about. When you move into a care home, your world shrinks, and if you're not careful, your name can quietly slip off the edge of someone else's priority list. I remember once sitting with the phone in my lap, staring at it for nearly 10 minutes. I wanted to call my daughter, just to hear her voice, but I was afraid of sounding needy. I didn't want to be that call. She felt guilty for answering. So I put the phone down, and that silence was louder than anything. If you're thinking about this move, really thinking about it, ask yourself, are you ready for the kind of loneliness that doesn't always look like sadness, but feels like being invisible? Because once you're no longer part of their daily life, even those who love you deeply can start forgetting how much you still need them. If this part of the message resonates with you, please comment number 2 below so I know you're still here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I gently invite you to do so. It helps us continue sharing stories that matter, and it reminds you that you're not forgotten. Regret 3. Losing my sense of purpose. When I made the move into assisted living, I assumed I was only changing my surroundings. I had no idea I was leaving behind the small, everyday reasons I woke up in the morning. Back home, my days had rhythm. I didn't have a job, but I had purpose. I'd feed the birds out back, fold laundry with care, call my neighbor to check in, and spend the afternoons organizing old family photos. These routines weren't exciting, but they gave me a quiet sense of responsibility. They made me feel useful, but once I settled into the facility, those habits slowly faded. Meals were brought to me. My room was cleaned without asking. Even something simple like sorting the mail was no longer mine to do. At first, I told myself I should enjoy it finally, a break from all the little tasks. But the quiet that followed wasn't peaceful. It was empty. I began to notice how long the days felt. I'd sit by the window, not really looking at anything, just waiting for the hours to pass. There was no list of things to do, no sense of being needed. There was a woman named Ruth who lived down the hall from me. She used to run a flower shop and loved to arrange bouquets. Her room had pictures of her, surrounded by color, but now she had no flowers, no supplies. No one asked her opinion on what looked nice. She still had that spark in her eyes, but it dimmed over time. One day, she whispered, "I miss feeling like I mattered." That stayed with me. Because it's true, when you no longer have something to care for, something to shape with your hands or heart, it starts to affect how you see yourself. The brain slows. The spirit follows. You begin to feel like you're waiting, not living. If you're thinking about making this move, I invite you to reflect not just on where you'll sleep or eat, but on what will still give you meaning. Because having purpose isn't about staying busy. It's about staying connected to who you are. And once those little anchors are gone, finding your way back to yourself takes more effort than you might expect. Regret 4. Declining health faster than expected. Before moving into the assisted living facility, I was doing fairly well for my age. I wasn't an athlete by any means, but I was able to care for myself independently. I took daily walks around my neighborhood, prepared my own meals, and even managed my household chores. These routines, though simple, kept me active and feeling connected to my body. Upon arrival at the facility, everything seemed more comfortable and easier. Meals were delivered to my door, and I no longer had to stand for long periods in the kitchen. Assistance was only a button press away, ready whenever I needed. Initially, this seemed like a blessing. No more physical strain, no more heavy lifting or standing for hours. It felt like a well-earned rest. But what I didn't realize was how quickly this convenience would become a double-edged sword. As days turned into weeks, I found myself moving less and less. The simple act of getting up from a chair became a struggle. My legs, once strong enough for daily walks, began to feel stiff and uncooperative. Sitting became easier than standing, and I slowly grew accustomed to the sedentary lifestyle. This place unintentionally encouraged. This wasn't just happening to me. I observed others in the facility experiencing similar declines. People who once proudly walked unaided gradually began depending on walkers, then wheelchairs. One resident named Helen A woman in her late 70s who had always been vibrant and active started to cut back on her daily walks. Months later, she was using a mobility scooter to get around. One afternoon, she confided in me, "It's like I aged a decade in the span of a few months, and I barely noticed it happening." Her words hit me hard because they captured exactly what many of us were silently enduring. When you stop using your body regularly, you lose muscle strength, flexibility, and balance faster than you expect. In a place designed to make life easier, it's easy to forget that movement isn't just about comfort. It's crucial to survival and maintaining independence. Looking back, if I had known how swiftly my strength would diminish, I would have pushed myself harder to keep moving. Even when I didn't feel motivated, I would have found ways to stay active, to challenge my body despite the convenience around me. Because slowing down doesn't just affect the body, it slows the mind and dims the spirit. If you are considering moving into a care facility, I urge you to ask yourself one vital question. Will you have the motivation and support to keep your body strong when everything around you is designed to make life effortless? Because once you start slowing down, regaining your strength and independence is far more difficult than you might think. If you're still watching and these insights resonate with you, please comment number 4 below to let me know you're here. Your feedback means a lot to us. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I invite you to subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss future videos that aim to inform and inspire. Your support helps us continue creating valuable content dedicated to empowering and uplifting our community. Regret 5. The loss of privacy and dignity. Before I moved into the care facility, privacy was something I took for granted. At home, I had my own space, a room where I could close the door and enjoy silence when I wanted. I could do things on my own terms without explanation or permission. Privacy wasn't something I thought about much. It was simply a part of my everyday life. But life in the care home was very different. From the moment I arrived, I felt like my privacy was constantly being invaded. Staff came and went throughout the day, checking in regularly, and my living space was often shared. There was rarely a moment when I was truly alone. Even basic tasks like getting dressed or using the bathroom required assistance. I understood that the staff were doing their job, but it was difficult to accept help with things I had done independently for decades. The loss of control was frustrating. I remember my first week there vividly, having to ask permission to do things I used to do without a second thought. Want to take a shower? You might have to wait until someone was available. Need to use the restroom? Sometimes pressing the call button meant waiting longer than I wanted. Meal choices were another challenge. If the menu didn't appeal to me that day, well, I had little say in the matter. I learned to adjust, but it felt like my preferences didn't matter as much anymore. Then there were the roommates. Not everyone is lucky enough to have a private room. Sharing a small space with someone you didn't choose can be difficult, especially if they're loud, untidy, or have health issues that disrupt your sleep. I was fortunate to have a kind roommate, but I heard many stories from others who weren't so lucky. No matter how much I tried to make my room feel like home, it never truly felt mine. It was a constant reminder that I had lost something important. Losing privacy also meant losing dignity. When people knocked but didn't always wait for an answer before entering, when I was spoken to like a patient rather than a person, and when my daily routine was dictated by schedules, I had no part in creating it, all added up. It changed me. I began to feel less like myself and more like just another name on a list. If you're considering moving into a nursing home, I encourage you to ask yourself, are you prepared to give up the privacy and control you've had your whole life? Because once it's gone, it's very difficult to get back. Regret 6. Realizing it's harder to leave than you think. When I first decided to move into the assisted living community, I told myself it was only temporary. I thought I'd give it a try, see how it felt, and if I didn't like it, I could simply go back home. The idea of just a visit made the transition feel less daunting, but what I didn't anticipate was how difficult it would be to leave once I had settled in. At first, leaving seemed like a straightforward option, but home was no longer the same. My house sat empty, and taking care of it from a distance became overwhelming. My family had started making decisions without me selling belongings they thought I wouldn't need. Even considering renting out the property to cover costs, it felt like my old life was slipping away, piece by piece. When I brought up the idea of returning, my children hesitated. They asked, "Are you sure you can manage alone? Isn't it safer to stay here where help is always nearby?" Their concerns came from love and worry, but their words planted doubt in my mind. Then there was the change in my own body. After months of living in a place where I no longer had to cook, clean, or walk much, I found my strength fading faster than I expected. The independence I once took for granted began slipping away, making the thought of returning home seem more daunting than I had imagined. My confidence in living alone diminished, and that fear kept me rooted in the facility. I met others who had the same experience. Many had thought they would only stay a little while, but soon realized that leaving was far more complicated than they had imagined. The longer you remain, the harder it becomes to adjust to life outside those walls. Some people lost the option entirely, either because their homes had been sold or their savings depleted by care expenses. There was no easy way back. This is the part that no one tells you. Moving in feels like a choice you can easily reverse. But for most, it isn't. The assisted living community slowly becomes your whole world. Before long, the life you once knew outside becomes a distant memory. If you're considering this kind of move, I urge you to ask yourself, are you ready for the possibility that once you step in, leaving might not be as simple as you think? Because the barriers to leaving, whether financial, physical, or emotional, can be tougher than you expect. If you're still watching and find this helpful, please comment number 6 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I warmly encourage you to subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss future videos designed to inform and inspire. Your support helps us continue sharing important stories and advice for our community. Looking back, I don't regret growing older, but I do regret believing that moving into a care home was my only option. When I first arrived, I expected comfort, safety, and a better quality of life. What I found instead was a place that slowly took away my independence, my privacy, my sense of purpose, and even my identity. That doesn't mean care homes are always bad. For many people, they provide necessary support and safety that can't be found elsewhere. However, before making such a significant decision, it's important to carefully consider what you might be giving up. Once you move in, life as you knew it changes in ways you may not expect. If I could go back, I would have fought harder to stay in my own home. I would have explored more options for assistance that didn't require giving up my freedom. I would have made sure I truly needed the level of care before making such a permanent choice. If you're facing this decision now, I encourage you to pause and ask yourself, is this really the best choice for me, or just the easiest one right now? Because the life you have today, your routines, your independence, your ability to make choices is worth holding on to for as long as you can. Thank you so much for watching today's video. We truly want to hear from you. Please leave a comment below sharing one important insight you gained and how you plan to apply it in your life. Your feedback means a great deal to us and motivates us to keep creating valuable content. If you found this video helpful, please give it a like, subscribe to our channel, and share it with others who might benefit. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you won't miss our future videos designed to inspire and support you. Your support makes all the difference. We appreciate you being part of our community and look forward to seeing you in the next video.